I first did this template by mistake, actually, or by accident, certainly not intentionally. I had just woken up from this really vivid dream where I remembered something that my mom and I did on Halloween when I was like 9. She bought all my candy from me. She bought it. She bought it for like 25 cents per piece or something like that. You know, as a kid, it was a fortune. But for my mom, it was probably all worth it because it meant her baby girl wasn't eating, 75 pieces of candy on a single night. So I got my $13 or whatever, and she got the knowledge that she's being a good mom. I woke up from that dream and I was like, maybe there's something behind that scientifically. And I just started writing on Medium. But I was at the stage where I really wanted to share and explore interesting ideas with my followers. So I did a little bit of digging and I found out that, yeah, actually you can pay, like money is such a good motivator to stick to healthy habits because in the short term, it turns out that your monkey brain would rather eat candy than be healthy, even though being healthy is a long-term benefit. But if you instead pay yourself to be healthy, that's a short-term benefit paired with a short-term benefit. So it's much easier for your brain to get into. And I thought that was so cool. So I wrote about it and I published it. And it was one of my first viral stories. And the way I ordered it, so I first started with that anecdote of me and my mom. I followed it with the science, talking about how researchers had found the same thing I had, or, I guess found it after they did, whatever. And I finished by talking about how those people, readers, could do the same thing at home, no matter what their healthy action was, whether they wanted to eat less candy, work out more, whatever. I extrapolated it so that they could use the bare bones of the mechanism for their own life. It took me about 45 minutes to type up. And yeah, like I said, it was one of my first viral stories on the platform. And it felt amazing to write something that was so resonant with so many people, even though it was based on such a specific and personal experience I had when I was like 9 years old. And I have used that exact template several more times. I calculated it. I've made at least $5,000 from this template, if not more. And I wanted to share it with you because it's such an easy, intuitive, simple way to organize your thoughts and share cool stuff with the people who are reading your articles. So the template is you start with an anecdote, you follow with the science, and you end with how the reader can do it at home. And over the years since I've been writing, I found out that there's some actual real science behind why this template works, okay? When you start with the anecdote, and this can be anything, it can be an idea you learned, something cool you just found out, a dream you had about when you were 9, and write it in a way that's engaging. Like try to make the reader feel like they're there in the moment and let them experience with you the magic of that really cool thing happening, either to you or maybe you do a hypothetical or you explain the story of the first person who did that cool thing. That's the important thing. The anecdote has to be engaging. Next, you follow with the science. An anecdote is great for hooking people in, for reeling them in to start reading your story and stay reading your story. But they finish the anecdote and they might be like, all right, cool, it worked for one person. Why should I care? Why am I listening to this random author? Who knows what she's talking about? At that exact moment, you drop them with a science bomb and you say, look, I'm not the only one who's experienced this. This scientist, this research paper from 2019, this awesome explorer, this super cool athlete, whoever your expert is, draw specifically from them, cite them, quote them, make sure that your audience understands you're not making this up. You are firmly backed up by real science, real research. And what I like to do in this section is I like to just either take a quote from the paper that I've read or a quote from the expert that I'm talking about, and then I expand it a little bit. Like I do a little bit of softer science, so that I'm making clear what my idea is to the audience and how they can connect it between my anecdote and this science. And I say, well, look, the scientist, they did this study, they tested it on X many people, and they got these results. I basically did the same thing when I was 9 without even realizing it, and that's why it worked. That's the scientific mechanism. That's great. So now they're like, okay, I'm interested. Okay, I believe this person. Now you're going to hit them with the third and, in my opinion, most important part. The DIY, how they can do this at home. Now, to do this, you have to take both the anecdote and the scientific explanation and strip it of context and nuance. Take it down to the bare bones of the mechanism. Why does it work the way it works? How can somebody take that mechanism and apply it to their own life? And here what I like to do is say, look, I did it this way, scientists did it this way. You can, as long as you just include this element and that element, You can do it in your life however you want, whether you want to do it for yourself, whether you want to do it for a partner. And I give them a couple examples maybe for how they can do this. And the reason this is such an important part is because the anecdote, it's specific to you, right? The science is specific to everyone. The take-home message, the DIY, that's where you make it specific for your reader. Only you don't have to do any of the work. All you have to do is make it clear and basic enough where the reader reading it is like, oh yeah, okay, that's how I can do that for myself. That's how I can take this and make this valuable. And the culmination of all this is you create a piece of work. It's not even that long. It's maybe, 800, 1,000 words. And it doesn't take long to write because you're following a really intuitive pattern. And when the reader gets to the bottom, they're like, wow, that was good. That wasn't just good, that was valuable. I already know how this is going to change my life. And I can believe that it's going to work because it worked for this person and they've quoted science. That's so exciting. And that's how you get readers who don't just read once or click on a title and bounce and never come back. They keep coming back. They keep reading your work because you build that valuable relationship with them where they know that you're going to have good stuff for them in the article. This sort of format lends itself really well to psychology, self-help, personal development, but really you can use it for anything. All it is you taking a really cool idea, maybe a habit you have or a fun thing that you realize that you can do. Then look for science to back it up. I love using NCBI, which is like a science tool. I'll include the link in the video description. And it's free. You just Google keywords and it pulls up a bunch of free scientific articles that you can read and use and cite for your own self. Sometimes though, that's a little dense and heavy. So if that's the case, try Googling a couple keywords first and see if there are any blog posts or sort of lighter scientific articles that talk about that. Usually those articles themselves will cite scientific papers, reviews, experts, and you can go straight to that primary source that they cite using the blog post kind of as a conduit. Finally, extrapolate. You've given them the bones, you've shown them the reasons why it works for you and why it works for science. Now, how can they take that and do it themselves? You want to just lay it down to the most basic elements that you can. So like, for example, if it's, like the best way to run a mile in under 10 minutes as a beginner, that's something that you did. And you found a really cool way to do it. And you've given an example and you found the science that backs you up. Now you say, well, look, this is just a really good way for beginners to motivate themselves to do something difficult. It doesn't have to be running. It can be for anything. It can be for crocheting. It can be for writing. It can be for, building a business. These are just the basic bones that you need to apply for your own idea. And that's it. That's the whole thing, right? So this specific order of events makes it engaging, trustworthy, and valuable in that order. It's engaging because you're telling a personal story. It's trustworthy because you're citing an expert, and it's valuable because you can tell them how they can take what they've just read and change their own life right now, not having to wait. They can just apply your knowledge right away. And that's my winning strategy for a blog post template that is just amazing, engaging, interesting, and will build really fantastic relationships with you and your reader. And hopefully you enjoyed this video because I just used that exact template. I started with my anecdote, I shared the science behind why it works, and I ended with how you can do this yourself. So hopefully if you found this video engaging, you'll understand that the template for the article itself will be engaging too. I wanted to walk through an example as well, just so you can kind of see how I've done this on a real life article. Okay, so this is one I knocked up a couple of months ago. It's called How to Use a Norwegian Mindset to Get Through the Long, Dark Winter. It's interesting because I start with an anecdote that isn't relevant for me, but I try to get the reader in the situation about how they can start to view the winter time, something that historically we all kind of hate and dread, as not a negative, but a positive. And I pull them into the story of Carrie Leibowitz, who did it herself, and I show them what she did, how she felt, what she was doing, her mindset leading up to this moment. And then look, I talk about the science behind the Norwegian wintertime mindset. And I explain why she found what she found, how she did what she did. And I cite from her words, I cite from the study, and I pull from other various psychological studies that kind of bulk and support what the main message of what I'm talking about. And finally, I end with how you can do this at home, right? How you can learn to love your own wintertime. We might not be in Norway, we might not be in the Antarctic, we might not be like that researcher, but that doesn't mean that we can't take her exact learnings and findings and apply them to our own life, to our own wintertime. And I made this a little bit long. I talk about how she did it, how I did it, and then how the reader can do it. And again, it took me maybe an hour to write this story. It wasn't particularly tough. And look, it's made me $200 already over the past couple of months. It was trending on Medium's list. This sort of strategy, I really can't state enough how straightforward it is, how easy it is for you to write, and how valuable it is to the reader. There's a reason that this is my second favorite blogging template that I use, and I think that you should give it a try yourself. So if you liked it, if you tried it, let me know, and let me know how you got on, how you found writing it, how you found the response. Tell me what you think about these kinds of videos, these templates. I love doing these. Hopefully this was valuable for you. And yeah, if you've got any other questions, let me know in the comments. Now, one thing I would love to recommend to you, I run a weekly newsletter with 3 other top writers on Medium, Sinem, Amar, and Michael. I've interviewed them all on this channel before, and they're such insightful writers. We have a paid weekly newsletter where every week we send out top tips. And the reason I'm doing this video today is because we were talking about our top earning articles, which strategies paid off the most for us. And this is one of the ones that I used. I mention a ton more valuable information, and then obviously the other 3 writers drop a ton, even more valuable information in the newsletter. So if you're interested in getting weekly advice like these strategies and templates that you can instantly apply to your own writing, please consider signing up. I love doing that newsletter, and I would love to hear what you think of it. It is $12 per month. Okay, so I'll let you all go, and until we speak again, happy writing.